Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, to our brethren in Georgia, in Fiji Island, Mexico, Spain, in Africa, to the United Kingdom, and also to our brethren in Australia. And to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad, greetings. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our episode number 2 on the subject, the Assyrian Confederacy. Now, I would like to read 13 symbolic code, number 3 and 4, on page 10. So, it says here, the Confederacy that we are studying this afternoon commences before the loud cry and before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. It is not the image of the beast, for this association precedes the image of the beast, and the confederacy is formed when the nations are girding themselves for war. Put another way, the confederacy will commence after the sealing and perhaps just before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. Moreover, it is in the time when the Christian nations are united that the woman, Babylon, will sit on the 7 heads. Revelation 17, verse 9, depicting also the union of the churches under Babylon. All those who are not expecting the confederacy, but instead are expecting next the reassertion of Roman Church supremacy, or the battle of Armageddon, or something else, are going to fall into this snare, for it will appear to them harmless and perhaps even a good thing, but it will be their trap. 13 symbolic code, number 3 and 4, page 10. So, those people by which they have no certain knowledge concerning this subject, but the only thing they knew is the assertion of Roman Church supremacy, or the battle of Armageddon, or something else. The voice of inspiration says they will fall into the snare, for it will appear to them harmless, not only harmless, but perhaps even a good thing. The shepherd's rod plainly told us that this confederacy will commence before the loud cry of the third angel's message. This confederacy will commence before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. And this confederacy is not the image of the beast, for this predicted event precedes the image of the beast. And the reason that this confederacy is formed because of such threatening war, when the nations are girding themselves for war. But one thing for sure, this confederacy will commence after the sealing of the 144,000, and perhaps just before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. But such confederacy is formed in the time when the Christian nations are united. But I would like to directly apply to the 50 states in the United States of America, that this confederacy is formed in the time when the 50 states in the United States of America are united. That the woman Babylon, or that woman in Revelation 17, will sit on the 7 heads, Revelation 17, verse 9, depicting also the union of the churches under Babylon. Now, I would like to connect the old symbolic code. Old symbolic code. 2 symbolic code, number 7 and 8, page 12. 2 symbolic code, number 7 and 8, page 12. Will the churches unite before Ezekiel 9? Question. Will the nominal churches be united before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9 and before the loud cry of the third angel's message takes place? Answer. It says, the churches may incompletely confederate almost any time. But the union of church and state, the image of the beast, will take place only after the investigative judgment of the dead is completed. For the fact that the anger of the nations, the time of trouble, Daniel 12 verse 1, the wrath of God, the 7 last plagues, Revelation 15:1, and the time to judge the dead, Daniel 8 verse 14, are events separate and distinct, one following the other. Early Writings, page 36. Therefore, the persecution against the church by the image beast arise in the time of the judgment of the living, the time of the loud cry, after the sealing of the 144,000, or after the sealing of the 144,000. Now, let us connect this reading to our first reading. We already concretely build the absolute fact that the Confederacy recorded in the book of Isaiah, chapter 7 and 8, and also in the book of Nahum, precedes the image of the beast. And here the shepherd's rod plainly told us in 2 Symbolic Code 7 and 8, page 12, that there is a confederation of the churches prior to the image of the beast. And it is called by inspiration, incompletely confederate. So, not all, because it says incompletely confederate almost any time. And that is represented by the woman sitting on the 7 heads. The one we read in 13 Symbolic Code 3 and 4, page 10. Because the image of the beast is represented by the woman riding on the beast. So, that confederacy in Isaiah chapter 7 is the fulfillment of that predicted event by which the woman sit on the 7 heads, by which such predicted event precede the image of the beast by which it was illustrated by the woman sitting on the scarlet colored beast. Now, let us read again this statement in 2 Symbolic Code 7 and 8, page 12, saying, the churches may incompletely confederate almost any time. Because the question is, will the nominal churches be united before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9 and before the loud cry of the third angel's message takes place? Who are they, the nominal churches? I would like to read first early writings. Here in early writings, so let us read on page 299, nominal Adventists, those who united in sounding the first and second angel's messages, but who rejected the third angel's message with its Sabbath truth, but nonetheless continued to espouse the Advent hope, are referred to by Mrs. White as the nominal Adventists, or those who reject the present truth. Also, different parties of professed Advent believers. In our early literature, these people were also referred to the first day Adventists. Now, at this time, I would like to use in general term, the nominal churches is pointing directly to all Christian Sunday keepers or Sunday keeping Christians, that all of them will be united before the image of the beast. And such union of all Sunday keeping Christians was illustrated in Revelation 17 verse 9, that the woman are sitting on the 7 heads. So, let us apply that to all Sunday keepers in the United States of America. Now, let us read again, 2 Symbolic Code 7 and 8, page 12. The churches may incompletely confederate almost any time, but the union of church and state, the image of the beast, will take place only after the investigative judgment of the dead is completed. So, in this study, without any doubts, there is no possibility that you could be able to ascertain clearly such predicted event if we have no knowledge concerning the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. For the voice of inspiration is plainly telling us that the image of the beast will take place only after the investigative judgment of the dead is completed. It did not say investigative judgment of the dead was completed, plainly indicating the order of events that immediately when the investigative judgment of the dead is completed, then the image of the beast is formed. And of course, we also called it the mark of the beast system. And also, we know that the image of the beast is represented in Revelation 7 as the four winds. So, by such knowledge in the judicial proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, then for sure, we could ascertain clearly such predicted event. So, in this reading, we can easily understand that the Confederacy recorded in Isaiah chapter 7 and Isaiah chapter 8, or the book of Nahum, will be fulfilled prior to the time when the judgment of the dead in the heavenly sanctuary is completed. Because that association precedes the image of the beast, by which the image of the beast, according to the voice of inspiration, will take place only after the investigative judgment of the dead is completed. So if we could be able to establish and ascertain clearly when the investigative judgment of the dead will be completed, then at that time, the image of the beast will take place. Remember, brethren, concerning the judgment that pertains to the dead, it says here in page 20, as the cleansing of the sanctuary in behalf of the dead is necessarily purely a book transaction. That is the reason for its taking place only in the heavenly sanctuary. So if we'll be talking about the judgment that pertains to the dead, the only proceedings takes place only in the heavenly sanctuary. In White House Recruiter, page 39, it says here, all who have perused these pages to this point have surely become aware of the fact that even this very restricted representation of the additional message, that of the judgment of the living, gives in itself tremendous power and force to the three angels' messages. Early Writings, page 277. But in what way is it to give absolute power and force to them? First, by bringing to light the heretofore unrevealed aspects of the judgment, and then subsequently by freeing God's people from both sin and sinners, thereby bringing into existence the long-looked-for purified church, that looketh forth as the morning, fair as the moon, clear as the sun, terrible as an army with banners. Song of Solomon, chapter 6, verse 10. Prophets and Kings, page 725. A veritable powerhouse indeed. But in this reading, I would like to focus our attention to the statement, all unrevealed aspects that pertains to the judgment. And I think the only aspect that had been revealed since 1844 pertaining to the judgment is the commencement. The commencement of the investigative judgment of the dead commenced in October 22, 1844. But here the statement, it says that the image of the beast will take place only after the investigative judgment of the dead is completed. Meaning, the word completed, the judgment that pertains to the dead is close. And that is why in 2 Azar 164, saying that when Jesus Christ, our high priest, shall begin the atonement for the living, there must be a message of present truth, sounding of the trumpet, urging everyone to lay hold on the Lamb of God, which is Jesus Christ, by which only can he in figure come to the sanctuary, confess his sin, and secure his life. Unless the close of the judgment for the dead and the commencement for the living be made known to us, we would have no present truth. while the judgment for the living is in session. And in 2 SR 220, it says, let's read the statement given by the shepherd's rod. If God, 2 SR 220, if God so faithfully revealed to the living the commencement of the judgment for the dead, it cannot be possible that He would keep secret the time of the judgment for the living. If He did, we would have no present truth in the time of the last seal. Neither could there be justice in such secrecy, nor could such judgment be legal. 2 SR page 220, or in other words, God will not begin the proceedings that pertains to the living without sending information that the judgment that pertains to the dead is close. Now, brothers and sisters, I would like to repeat again that God is a God of order. He's not the author of confusion. 1 Corinthians 14:33. And God distinctly separates the proceedings in the holy place and the proceedings in the most holy place. But at this time, I would like to say that the preposition for judgment for the dead, that proceeding is in the holy place. But the preposition of judgment of the dead, that proceeding is in the most holy place. And I would like to read to SR 181. The midnight cry was first proclaimed prior to 1844. And the coming of the bridegroom was Christ coming to the most holy place in the heavenly sanctuary for the investigative judgment of the saints. The investigation being in two sections. First, the judgment for the dead, and the second, for the living. The cry must be repeated. Otherwise, we would have no present truth for the time of the judgment of the living. So the midnight cry was first proclaimed prior to 1844. And that proclamation of the midnight cry is the proclamation of the message during the period of the judgment for the dead. Christ's mediatorial work in the holy place. We read several times in tract number 3 on page 18, saying, hence His mediatorial work began first in the holy, then in the most holy. When does Christ's mediatorial work began in the holy place? That is the proclamation of the midnight cry, beginning in 1833. 10 years. From 1833 to 1844, that is 10 years, typifying the Feast of Trumpets, 10 days, in Leviticus 23, verse 24 to verse 27. That before the high priest shall enter the most holy place, there must be a Feast of Trumpets to inform all the inhabitants that the high priest is about to enter the most holy place. By which such event, typifying the work of Jesus Christ. And it is the Millerites movement, according to White House Recruiter, page 19. It says, the only revelation of new prophetic truth subsequent to the Reformation is the announcement of the year in which was to begin the work of cleansing the sanctuary, primarily in behalf of the dead, based on Daniel 8, verse 14, but not then fully understood. As its announcement was made by the first-day Adventists, it necessarily follows that they were the third group of servants. With a new and distinctive message, and as is well known, they started proclaiming in the year 1833, announcing that the cleansing of the sanctuary was to commence in the year 1844. Thus, in 1833, the clock of parabolic time struck in the hour of 6. White House Recruiter, page 90. But our main subject is, when does the judgment of the dead will close? By which such proceeding begins in October 22, 1844, in the most holy place. In 2SR, I would like to read. It says here, in 2SR, page 189. 2SR, page 189. It says, during Christ's ministration in the holiest of all, which is a throne of judgment, you see, throne of judgment,
of blotting out sins and granting of rewards. To us our page 189. Therefore, the work of Jesus Christ in the most holy place is divided into two divisions. The first division is blotting out of sins. We called it the beginning work. You can read that statement also in 2SR 164. But the closing work of the judgment of the dead, it is granting of rewards. But what does it mean, granting of rewards? Since it is pertaining to the dead. Inscribing their names in the book of resurrection. And since there are only 3 resurrections, 1 Thessalonians, which is also attached Revelation 20, verse 5 and 6, then Ezekiel 37, and then Daniel 12. Therefore, in such illustration, the statement in 2 symbolic code, number 7 and 8, on page 12, saying, when the investigative judgment of the dead is completed, that must be pertaining to the closing work, but especially to the inscribing of the names of the righteous represented by the altar. Those will be resurrected in Daniel 12, verse 2. Now, we would like to show to you this little diagram, the proceedings in the most holy place, to have a clear view of the coming events. Although, in reality, I have no time to explain them one by one. But I think it is beneficial to... Okay. So where is the last proceeding in Daniel 12? So this one, can we enlarge this one? So here you can see March 21, 2022, Gregorian calendar. March 21, 2022, this is the time by which the investigative judgment of the dead is completed. I would like to repeat again. March 21, 2022, that is the time by which the investigative judgment of the dead is completed. Therefore, in that day, that is also the time by which the image of the beast takes place. After the investigative judgment of the dead is completed. Then, since the Confederacy that we are studying in Isaiah 7 and Isaiah 8, and also in the book of Nahum, precedes the image of the beast, therefore, that predicted event must be fulfilled prior to March 21, 2022. And let us study closely, brothers and sisters. And I am not bothered whether there must be people listening this message or not. My only duty is to proclaim the message. So I will be studying what will happen in 2021. What will happen in 2021? Now, I would like to read again 13 symbolic code, 3 and 4, page 10. I would like to read that portion saying, put another way, the Confederacy will commence after the sealing and perhaps just before the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. Now, what sealing mentioned here? Is it the sealing that takes place in the heavenly sanctuary? Or is it the sealing that takes place on the earthly sanctuary? I would like to read answerer number 5, page 31, page 32. Now, I would like to read. Is it he, or are we to look for another? The question is pointing to he who does it in pieces. The tract does not by name identify the one who does it in pieces. Any conclusions, therefore, that may be deduced from one's analysis of its contents can be only inferential and therefore tentative. From current developments in the European theater of war, it does look as though Hitler is doomed. Despite this appearance, however, Nahum's prophecy analytically fits him. Although it is possible that someone else may yet come forth to carry the prediction to fulfillment. And if during this war, the prophecy does not meet its entire fulfillment, then it must be that the sealing of the saints is yet incomplete. The work of the message unfinished, the first fruits not ready to stand with the Lamb on Mount Zion. This seems to be the only hindrance. Now let us analyze closely the statement. The statement can be easily understood that when this war takes place, the sealing of the 144,000 is completed. That when this war takes place, the 144,000 are already ready to stand with the Lamb on Mount Zion. And since the 144,000 are already ready to stand with the Lamb on Mount Zion, then there will be no more hindrance that the prophecy will be fulfilled in its perfect or entire fulfillment. Because that is the reason why the prophecy did not fulfill in its perfect fulfillment. The entire fulfillment of the prophecy had not been carried out at that time for the reason that the sealing of the saints is yet incomplete. For the reason that the work of the message unfinished. For the reason that the first fruits not ready to stand with the Lamb on Mount Zion. Therefore, when the 144,000 brothers and sisters, all of them are sealed, and the work is finished into their lives, and then they are ready to stand with the Lamb on Mount Zion, then there will be no more hindrance, then the prophecy will be fulfilled in its entire fulfillment. First of all, I would like to say that at this time, by the logic of events, I would like to read again track number 12 on page 76. In these verses, the personal pronouns of the two antagonists, the king of the south and the king of the north, are not traceable by grammatical law, but only by the logic of events. Not only the king of the north and the king of the south, but all the entities on Daniel chapter 11 are not traceable by the grammatical law, but only by logic of events. That without any doubt, the one who does it in pieces at this present time in the fulfillment of the prophecy is none other than China. Now, I would like to read track number 12 on page 53. It says here, current events that may fulfill prophecy. Current events that may fulfill prophecy. Because the boon of contention among the angry nations of today, I would like to address the word today, 2020. Because the boon of contention among the angry nations of today, year 2020, is the world's markets. And that is the reality, the world's markets. And China is blooming and began to compete with the nations in Europe as well as in America. And that is the boon of contention in reality. No one can deny that absolute fact. And then it says, and because the churches are threatened by the totalitarian governments, we know that is the government in China, brothers and sisters, and thus urged to press together in order to preserve Christianity, the fact is thereby evidence that the time is nigh for the arrival of the predicted worldwide religious, political, commercial empire, the supposed remedy for the world's ills. Track number 12, page 53. Now, how about this statement in 2TG? Let's read here in 2TG, number. It says here the shepherd's rod is plainly telling that communism, 2TG 41, page 19, page 17 rather. The world sees communism as a hydra-headed monster behind a bush. And the nations are already, so to speak, smiting their knees one against the other while they look at it. Without any doubts, 100% the communism mentioned here in the fulfillment of the prophecy, none other than China. It says, their safety, however, does not depend on fear and armament, nor on the man we elect for president. The reason why some people thinking that they need Donald Trump as the president of the United States of America because China is threatening them, such communism. And they thought that only Donald Trump can solve the present predicament. But the voice of inspiration says, no, it does not depend on any man we elect for president, but on God. On Him who holds the earth in space and who still rules the affairs of mankind from the dawn of history till today. The great nations that have fallen fell when they were best armed and most independent of God. This should be a great lesson to all, but who realizes it? 2TG 41, page 17. Now, brothers and sisters, according to 2 Symbolic Code number 1, page 8, America is a prophetic nation. America, United States of America, is a prophetic nation. Or in other words, of all the nations in the earth, the closing scenes of this world history or the church history is focused in the United States of America. Will America survive? I would like to read 1TG. 1TG 24, page 11. Is World War II yet to be finished? Saints yet to be delivered? And it says, by Nahum. Brethren, of all the things ever recorded in the Bible, it is the prophecy that had been most guarded by God. And the truth is that you can deny, you can evade, you can reject, you can speak evil against the prophecy, but you cannot withhold the fulfillment of what the prophecy has foretold. That statement in tract number 5 on page 86, saying, as a matter of fact, trying to obscure the light on any other Bible truth will in no way darken or doom it, but only darken and doom himself. So trying to obscure the light on any other Bible truth, even more particularly to the prophecies, will in no way darken or doom it, but only darken and doom himself. So let us honestly study the Bible. Brethren, we should not study the Bible. I remember the statement in tract number 5. It says, tract number 5, page 6, saying, so before a person can climb the ladder of truth, he must first of all free himself from erroneous theories, which keep him bound in darkness, and to lose himself from such weights of error, so as to reach the top step of the ladder of truth. He must carefully investigate and prove all things in open-mindedness. Do not read the word in the light of former opinions, but with a mind free from prejudice, search it carefully and prayerfully. If as you read conviction comes, and you see that your cherished opinions are not in harmony with the word, do not try to make the word fit these opinions. Make your opinions fit the word. Do not allow what you have believed or practiced in the past to control your understanding. Messages to Young People, page 260. For example, brothers and sisters, if you were trying to search the shepherd's rod, you are searching the Bible to find passages to build your opinions, you will not arrive into the truth, brothers and sisters. And that is why I admonish all the Bereans, try to find positive answer. Nahum 1 verse 4. Now before reading Nahum 1 verse 4, let us read 1TG 24:11. It says here, this afternoon, we are to study the book of Nahum. The burden of this entire book, 3 chapters in all. You see, 3 chapters in all. So the whole chapter 1, the whole chapter 2, and the whole chapter 3. So let us read again. This afternoon, we are to study the book of Nahum. The burden of this entire book, 3 chapters in all, is concerning 2 separate people. So the particular object in view, if we will be studying the 3 chapters of the book of Nahum, projecting 2 separate people. 2 separate people, according to the shepherd's rod. Now, let us read again to remind, tract number 14. On page 34, it says, tract number 14, page 34, foretelling to Daniel the work of this wicked power. To repeat again, the wicked power mentioned here is the exceeding great horn. The exceeding great horn. And why is it that the book of Daniel is recorded in track number 14? The entire book, track number 14, is dealing the book of Nahum. And accordingly, so let us read again the statement in 1TG 24. 1TG 24 on page 18 and page 19. It says, what is the overall purpose of Nahum's prophecy? So overall, meaning the main purpose of Nahum's prophecy. It is to enlighten God's people of the signs of the times. First, it is to enlighten God's people of the signs of the times. Now, here in 2SR, page 28, it says, it is evident from the words of the Master, Jesus Christ. 2SR, page 28. It says, let us read again. It is evident from the words of the Master that the book of Daniel contains information regarding the signs of the times and of the end of the world. What book that you need to study by which contain information concerning the signs of the times and the end of the world? It is the book of Daniel. What is the overall purpose of the book of Nahum? First, to enlighten God's people of the signs of the times. There is no possibility that you could understand correctly the entire book of Nahum unless we have a complete understanding concerning the book of Daniel. And then it says, 1TG 24, page 18 and 19, to make them aware that the great and dreadful day of the Lord is at hand. The only book that explains the great and dreadful day of the Lord in more detailed manner is the book of Revelation. Therefore, when we study the book of Nahum, we need to connect Daniel and Revelation. It says to make them aware that the great and dreadful day of the Lord is at hand, that the purification of the church, the judgment in the house of God, 1 Peter 4:17, is soon to take place, that the wicked shall not much longer be in their midst, that the redemption of the righteous is at hand, that they must not fail to perform their God-given duties. 1TG 24, page 18 and 19. The only thing that we need to perform is God-given duties. So here the voice of inspiration is plainly telling that in studying the book of Nahum, closely connected the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary for the shepherd's rod connect 1 Peter chapter 4 on verse 17. Now, let me read to you some passages. For example, 1TG number 11, page 11, concerning 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 17. 1TG number 11, page 11. It says here, 1TG number 11, page 11. So only those who survive the judgment for the living in the house of God, 1 Peter 4:17, those whose names are not blotted out from the book, Revelation 3 verse 5, will comprise the church, among whom are to be 144,000 sons of Jacob, Revelation 7 verse 3 to 8. And when Michael stands up, then those whose names are left in the book will be delivered from the trouble such as never was. Daniel 12 verse 1. We know Daniel 12 verse 1, that is the image of the beast. That is the time when the woman sits on the scarlet colored beast. So here the shepherd's rod says in 1TG 11, page 11, concerning 1 Peter 4:17, is pointing to the blotting out of names. And only those whose names were not blotted out will have such divine protection. I remember that statement to us, when you locate that statement, saying, without divine protection, what will happen to those people at that time by which they will have no divine protection? To us, our page 159, it says, those who are without God's protection will find no safety in any place or position. To us, our page 159, those who are without God's protection will find no safety in any place or position. Wherever you are, whatever your position, if you have no God's protection, you will be involved with such destruction. And herein, 1TG, number 6, page 39. 1TG, number 6, page 39. In this time of trouble, when every element is at work to bring the time of trouble such as never was, Daniel 12:1, God is to cleanse His church in order to protect His people from the trouble that she is headed for. The people that are left after the sinners are taken, the remnant, shall have perfect peace. But in page 38, it was explained that it is pointing to the blotting out of names. Now let us read 1TG 6, page 38. Only the holy ones, those whose names are left written in the book, only the holy ones, those whose names are left written in the book, escape the destruction that falls upon the wicked in the church, not in the world. So the blotting out of names precedes such destruction, the destruction of the wicked in the church. And only those whose names are left written in the book, escape the destruction that falls upon the wicked in the church. Only they constitute the remnant, the ones that are left. 1TG number 6, page 38 and page 39. Now let's go back to the reading and to find out that statement in 1TG 24:11, saying that the entire chapters of the book of Nahum, chapter 3 chapters, is to portray two separate people. Two separate people. Now let us read tract 14, page 34. Foretelling to Daniel the work of this wicked power, the angel declared, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. Daniel 7, verse 25. As a natural consequence, therefore, the type ancient Assyria finds its double in the power which in the Middle Ages broke up the church-state union. And as that union was dissolved by the present Protestant nations, the conclusion inescapably follows that modern Assyria reaches down to our day, thus certifying the fact that Isaiah's prophecy is correlated with Nahum's. So we have the book of Nahum connect to the book of Isaiah, connect to the book of Daniel, and also to the book of Ezekiel. Now let us read again, tract 14, page 8 and 9. Very evident it is that this aggressor power, who does it in pieces, girds himself for war. In the day when the chariots have such blazing lights, powerful electric headlights, that they resemble flaming torches, in the day of this phenomenon, the fierce, the great rulers of earth, Ezekiel 31, verse 1 to 14, shall be terribly shaken. Tract 14, page 8 and 9. Why is it that the great rulers of the earth will be terribly shaken? And who are they, the great rulers of the earth mentioned here? Ezekiel 31, verse 1 to 14. There are only two nations mentioned in Ezekiel 31, verse 1 to 14, Egypt and Assyria. So now we focus from verse 3 to verse 14, because only verse 1 and 2 mentioned in Ezekiel 31, pointing to Egypt. But from verse 3 to 14, it is concerning Assyria. And also Isaiah 7 and Isaiah 8. Now, since the Zephyrus says that the 3 chapters of the book of Nahum is portraying two separate people. Now, let us read 2TG. So let us read the statement. 2TG 41, page 19. So let us read. I shall now read to you what God Himself thinks of it. Isaiah 8, verse 8, verse 9, and verse 10. And he shall pass through Judah. He shall overflow and go over. He shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land, O Emmanuel. Associate yourselves, O ye people, and ye shall be broken in pieces. And give ear, all ye of far countries. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand. For God is with us. Now let's read the statement given by the shepherd's rod. According to Matthew chapter 1 verse 23, the name Emmanuel belongs to Christ. And by interpretation, it means God with us. Plainly then, the exclamation, O Emmanuel, shows that inspiration is speaking to Christ. And since he could not be thus addressed before he was born of a woman and received the name Emmanuel, it is obvious that this association of peoples is to be found in the Christian era, in the era in which Emmanuel lives. But we already explained that it must be in the last generation of men, in the last or in the closing scenes of the Christian dispensation. Why? Because this Assyria is the Assyria in the time of the end, when the great and dreadful day of the Lord takes place, which is the judgment that pertains to the living. Now let's read 1 TG. So let us read again, 1 TG number 23, pages 5 and 6. From this we see that the Assyria under discussion exists in the time of the end, the time in which the great and dreadful day of the Lord takes place. And B.T. Hotep says that the great and dreadful day of the Lord is still ahead in their days. Answerer number 3, page 88. And looking forward to the time of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, the time just ahead of us, the Lord admonishes the people who will be living at that time. Who are they? Who will be living in the period of the great and dreadful day of the Lord? Of course, they are the saints destined to translation, no longer to taste death. I would like to read track number 4 on page 60 and page 61. It says here, the lighty to awake the ministry in an effort to save our brethren from the imminent vengeance of God, the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Track number 4, page 60 and 61. What is the great and dreadful day of the Lord? The imminent vengeance of our God. And that is concerning Isaiah 61, verse 1 and 2, by which when Jesus Christ entered to the synagogue in Nazareth, according to the Desire of Ages 240, when he read Isaiah 61, verse 1 and 2, he omitted the phrase, the day of vengeance, because that is not the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy. And that is the reason why Jesus Christ says in Luke 4, verse 25, this scripture is fulfilled in your ears, but not in your sight. The shepherds are declared clearly in 1 SR 153 that it will repeat itself with the people of God, and this would find its fulfillment in the time of harvest. So one subject closely connected to each other. And brethren, the mere fact that it is called the vengeance of our God, the great and dreadful day of the Lord, that would be the fulfillment that Syria, Assyria, and Israel will receive God's divine judgment. If you still remember, in track number 14, on page 32, it says, the high points of this confederacy, some of which are still unfulfilled, fall into sequence thusly. Number 1, the overthrow of both ancient Israel and Syria by ancient Assyria as a divine judgment, especially upon Israel for confederating against her own brethren, the kingdom of Judah. So divine judgment, and it is also one of the only remedy in 2SR on page 93 and 94. Since the history of the church is such, and the last section of the Laodiceans is in a worse condition and under greater condemnation than any previous one, and as there is no time left for calling out a new movement, then a message of amazing light and stern rebuke through the Word of God with manifestations of divine judgments is the only remedy that can bring through conversion and reformation. Shall you wait the divine judgments before you believe the message? And would you think at the time when the divine judgment are manifesting, and that is the time that you believe that the message cometh from God, you will still be profited at that time. I remember the statement in 2SR 185. 2SR 185, it says, at the beginning of the judgment of God, they saw their mistake and rushed for the ark of safety. But it was beyond their reach, for they knew nothing of the message. And by the time they acquired it, filled their lamps with oil. There had been a delay. The angel had passed through the city, through Jerusalem, the church. The ceiling was finished, and probation for the church had closed. The door was shut, thus they were left out. Then they came with these words, Lord, Lord, open unto us. But he answered and said, Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Appoint his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. What a disappointment that will be. Now, I would like to read again the statement in 2TG 41, page 19. And I would like to proceed to the next paragraph. It says, Now the statement, take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for God is with us. Plainly says, what I tried to tell you, that the nations, including the churches, have left Emmanuel, God with us, out of their plans, that what they are trying to do, they are doing on their own initiative and resources. For the words God is with us, coming from one who is not with the assemblies of the people, clearly implies that Emmanuel is not with them, and that therefore their work shall come to naught. 2TG 41, page 19. Now, that is very plain. Brothers and sisters, I would like to make an illustration. Now, the subject is Assyria and Nineveh. Now, for example, this nation is represented by Assyria. The entire nations left Emmanuel. Not only the nations, including the churches. That is the statement of the shepherd's rod. But the people by which they say, God is with us, cannot be found here in this nation represented by Assyria. It is not difficult to understand, brothers and sisters. Now here, let us read again Nahum chapter 1, verse 4. Now it says here, He rebuketh the sea and maketh it dry. Of course, it cannot be literal because there was no such instances that the entire sea had been dried. He rebuketh the sea and maketh it dry, and drieth up all the rivers, not only the sea, but as well as all the rivers dried. What will happen if all the entire sea and all the rivers dried? What happened to all the plants? You know the answer. Now, brothers and sisters, the voice of inspiration made it so plain. Nahum 1 verse 4. He rebuketh the sea and maketh it dry, and drieth up all the rivers. Bashan languisheth. You see, Bashan languisheth. And Carmel. Not only Bashan, but as well as Carmel. Why? What is represented by the tree? And I think not only the tree, as well as all the fish. They cannot survive without water. Does the Bible is telling a lie or telling the truth? Brothers and sisters, it says here, He rebuketh the sea, and maketh it dry, and dried up all the rivers. Bashan languisheth, and Carmel, and the flower of Lebanon languisheth. I would like to give you an example here in the Bible, in Isaiah 24, and verse 4. It says, The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The word languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. Now, I would like to read Isaiah 33, verse 9. Isaiah 33, verse 9. Let us read. It says, The earth mourneth and languisheth. Lebanon is ashamed and hewn down. Sharon is alike a wilderness. And Bashan and Carmel shake off their fruits. Now, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters, why is it that Bashan and Carmel shake off their fruits? Because there was no more water. So the fruits mentioned here must be unmatured. The same with a statement in Revelation. Let me read to you. Revelation chapter 6 on verse 13. Revelation chapter 6 verse 13. Let's read. And the stars of heaven fell into the earth, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. What kind of fruits? Untimely figs. The word untimely meaning such fruit did not reach into spiritual or maturity. Because the only thing that can reach spiritual maturity is the present truth. It is the present truth, brethren. And how could such fruits reach to spiritual maturity while it is dried, brothers and sisters? There is no green thing, no green pasture. I would like to go first to 1 TG. And in this study, brethren, I would like always to remind that according to the voice of inspiration, we can, I would like to read that reading. 2SR, it says that page 18, 2SR page 18, but though it be possible to deceive men, but even ourselves, it is possible that we are deceiving our own selves, but we can never impose upon God, for He knows what is in the heart. Or in other words, there is no Davidian movement today that will not claim that they are the true movement and the present truth is within their borders, all of them. But, brethren, you cannot impose that to God. And it's only a blasphemy. It's only a blasphemy. Because the sure word of prophecy is plainly telling that there is a predicted time that the entire United States of America, there will be no more present truth. It cannot be in the days of William Miller. It cannot be in the days of Sister White. It cannot be in the days of Alonzo Johnson Wagoner. It cannot be in the days of B.T. Hotep. But for sure, the Bible cannot be mistaken. It was predicted beforehand with different angles or in all angles of the prophecy that there must be a period of time by which the entire United States of America had been trodden underfoot by the exceeding great horn. Brethren, by the prophecies only can we prove or disprove. That is the statement in tract number 6, page 4. By the prophecies only can we prove or disprove, know what we believe and believe what we know, and with safety accept or reject any message. Now, for example, subject, Revelation chapter 12. Who is she, the woman, in the last generation of men? Of course, that is the particular object in view. The woman is clothed with the sun. So through the photograph, through the picture, the shepherd's rod made it so plain. In 2SR page 75, it says, therefore the woman clothed with the sun and travailing with child is the period after Israel went out of Egypt. Went out of Egypt. What is the United States of America? Antitypical Goshen. And Goshen is a part of Egypt. That is the specific place by which God's people abandoned and they went into the wilderness. 1SR page 76, the land of Goshen stands as a symbol of the United States of America in which the church came into existence. So that woman, by which the woman is clothed with the sun, cannot be found in the United States of America because according to the picture, pictured out with unmistakable evidence, she was no longer in Egypt. And Goshen represents the United States of America. How about Zechariah chapter 6? In Zechariah chapter 6, the shepherd's rod declared clearly in 2TG, number 22, page 22. God's Spirit, having been silenced in the North Country, must denote that the messages of God in the North Country were generally rejected, especially the one of the fourth chariot, which caused the Spirit of truth to turn away and to bring truth no more through them, to be silent there, and that, therefore, there is not to be expected any truth through them. Do you believe this paragraph? It did not say, especially the one of the four chariots. No. The one of the fourth chariot. Meaning, what is the fourth chariot? Track number 2, page 34, Laodicean. Therefore, Laodicean must be at least 2. One of the Laodiceans. Typical Laodiceans, people declaring the judgment that pertains to the dead. Antitypical Laodiceans, people declaring the judgment that pertains to the living. One of them causes God's Spirit to bring truth no more through them. That is very plain. So what is the North Country? United States of America. Because North Country, in track number 2, page 28, that is Babylon. And here it says, to symbolic code number 1, page 8, as the fulfillment of this prophecy is yet future, and that future mentioned here is this presidential election 2020. Although it was not yet decided who will sit such office, but this is the fulfillment of this predicted event. As the fulfillment of this prophecy is yet future in the days of Bethel, we cannot now tell who will then be the head king of the north of this prophetic nation, modern Babylon, that is symbolized by the two-horned beast. And how about Revelation 14 verse 8? 2SR 245. Very plain, brothers and sisters. There are two Babylons, the antediluvian world and post-diluvian world. The antediluvian world addressed only to churches, but the post-diluvian world addressed to nations. And that is United States of America. Not only the nations, but including the churches. And that is why this statement, brethren, in 2TG number 9, is pointing to the United States of America. I would like to read to you the statement. 2TG number 9, page 7. We know that the Spirit who leads into all truth and all knowledge is not himself led or taught by any man. Hence, why should we depend on any man that is divested of inspiration to pass judgment on inspired truth? The word points out that not men only, but even the nations are as nothing. The nations mentioned here is the United States of America, the 50 states of the United States of America. In the sight of God, it is nothing, brothers and sisters. And there is no inspired servant in the United States of America. Now, to repeat again, here in 1TG 30, page 17, Isaiah 4, verse 1, it is wholesale deception. Why is it that it is wholesale? Because the entire vineyard becomes the dragon's headquarters. What is the vineyard? Track number 12, page 43. That is Palestine. And what is modern Palestine? 1SR 158, United States of America. And what happened to the vineyard? Becomes the dragon's headquarters. Or in other words, all the churches, all the movements within the United States of America had been defeated by the devil. It says here in track number 15, page 85 and 86, unquestionably, therefore the wilderness where the woman was now rest for the time being is the land of the Gentiles, and the woman's having flee from the face of the serpent in her homeland shows that the dragon had made the Holy Land his headquarters. But that is the time. And also here in 1TG number 30, page 17. Wholesale deception. What is wholesale deception? All of them who are in the United States of America, what they are after is the name. And to them, that is the strongest proof that they are the true movement because their names is found in the inspired records. But that is wholesale deception. In Isaiah 4 verse 1, just be called by your name. And let us eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Bread represents present truth. They were not bothered whether the present truth is in their movement or not. The only thing, brothers and sisters, is that they want God's name, only by name. And I would like to read 1TG 30:17. It says, the first thing we need to know is the time indicate the term in that day. The antecedent of the words that day is found in verses 13 and 14 of the preceding chapters, of which the 4th chapter is a continuation. It did not say preceding chapter. but rather plural form, preceding chapters. What is the preceding chapters of chapter 4? Chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Now let us use only chapter 2 and 3. It cannot be chapter 3 alone. Otherwise, the shepherd's rod, grammatically incorrect. It says chapters. So it must be chapter 2 and chapter 3. Now let us read. You yourself study closely the verse 13 and 14 of chapter 2 and the verse 13 and 14 of chapter 3. Because that is the answer of Isaiah chapter 4, verse 1, according to the shepherd's rod. The antecedent is found on the preceding chapters of chapter 4, which is found on verses 13 and verse 14. Now, let us read the Bible. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 13 and 14. And upon all the cedars of Lebanon. So the same statement, right? In Nahum 1:4 and Isaiah 33, verse 9. Cedars meaning leadership. And upon all the cedars of Lebanon that are high and lifted up, and upon all the oaks of Bashan, and upon all the high mountains, and upon all the hills that are lifted up. In verse 13 and 14, it says, the Lord standeth up to plead, and standeth to judge the people. The Lord will enter into judgment with the ancients of his people, and the princes thereof, for ye have eaten up the vineyard, and the spoil of the poor is in your houses. Before everything is too late, brothers and sisters, try to study Isaiah 2, verse 13 and 14, and Isaiah 3, verse 13 and 14. In Isaiah 3, verse 13 and 14, the answer is that this Lebanon, or these cedars of Lebanon, these oaks of Bashan, all the high mountains and all the high hills is found in the vineyard. And what is the vineyard? Palestine. Track number 12, page 43. But this is modern Palestine. 1SR 158, United States of America. The Bible will not use all if there is something which is not included. The word all, let us use the explanation given by the shepherd's rod. Here in 1SR 218, it says, the biblical number 7 is used as a symbol meaning all. Therefore, the symbol does not exclude any, but means all. 1SR 218. Therefore, when the Bible says all, nothing is to be excluded. All must be included. The same with the statement in 2TG 41:19, including all the churches within Assyria have left Emmanuel. Brothers and sisters, brethren, the time is fast running out. You cannot twist the prophetic word of God. Look at ancient Israel. They are trying to cover up, to hide the truth. But you cannot do it forever. You are only dooming your own self because you cannot withhold the fulfillment of the prophecy. There must be great confusion, great darkness that will occur in the United States of America in 2021. And only those who will accept the present truth, cometh outside from the United States of America, will be protected by God. We will continue this subject, brothers and sisters, and hoping that the good Lord will bless us and would help us. Hoping that you will study closely Nahum chapter 1 verse 4 and then explain who is the Bashan and Carmel there, by which it did not say the top of Carmel. Let us distinctly separate the word Carmel and the predicted top of Carmel. Meaning, brothers and sisters, among the Media, that is the same with Isaiah 2 verse 1. It was exalted by God above all mountains and above all hills. Meaning, God bestowed unto them the complete understanding of the plan of redemption. Plenty of green pastures. How could it be, brothers and sisters, how could it be that there will be green pastures in the vineyard when all the waters, both in the sea and all the rivers, dried up? Whether it grass or whether it trees, all plants cannot survive without water. And that water is the spirit of life. Let me read to you this reading in 1SR. It says here, 123. Christ referred to water as a symbol of everlasting life. The meaning of the symbol of drinking the water with the barley cakes is that souls were to be saved by its new truth, the spirit of life. 1SR 123. So that the significance that there is no more water in the vineyard, all the sea and all the rivers dried up, there is no more new truth, brothers and sisters. So we'll continue this subject and hoping that the good Lord will bless you. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful, wonderful evening.